Most of the time when someone makes a series of videos on YouTube, after they get done, they have some things that they think, I wish I would have mentioned this. So this is that video. This is video 12, things I forgot to mention, or things I might have forgotten to mention, I'm not sure. And these are all things that I hope will be helpful. So regarding endometriosis, there's a lot of inflammation in the body, and things that can help with inflammation naturally are really, really good to incorporate. And I mentioned this before, but I wanted to demonstrate specifically a vitamin C source that I supplement with, Spring Valley. Sometimes I will drink a drink. Let me show this to you as well. Sometimes I will supplement with one of these or one of these. There's just lots of antioxidants, electrolytes, vitamins, nutrients, and there's too much for me to mention in a short video, but just look into those things. Histamines are something that can affect your body, and children's liquid Benadryl. You can get the kind that is free of dye if you prefer. I get the kind that has no decongestants in it, because decongestants can have adverse effects if you have high blood pressure, if you have a heart condition, and other sorts of things. But the plain children's Benadryl, if I am having really bad problems with abdominal discomfort, pain, inflammation, bloating, painful bowel movements, or diarrhea, sometimes it seems like taking like a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of this helps. I've talked to pharmacists about this. They said I'm not crazy. They said there's real reasons why that helps. Histamines are part of our body's inflammatory response. Inflammation is a sign and a symptom. Chronic inflammation becomes a problem. It's best to treat inflammation with natural, healthy things, because those don't have any negative side effects. They are permanent positive influences in your body, and it's what God intended. Something else that I like to recommend to people for overall health, if you are having problems with indigestion, sour stomach, nausea, heartburn, digestive pain, painful gas, this right here is an absolute godsend. I had tried everything, and everything I tried seemed to make me worse for many years until I started using this. And this is Equate Maximum, well, usually I get the regular strength, but this bottle is the maximum strength. They were out of stock of the regular strength. But it's comparable to Mylanta in its active ingredients. And basically what it has is aluminum hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide, and simethicone. The first two are antacids, and the last is an anti-gas. This just works wonders. When I have digestive problems or bowel pain, during my endometriosis flare-ups, or during my period pain, this helps me when I feel nauseous and sick, and it's an absolute miracle. Let me grab some other things that are really helpful. Some other things that I personally find to be very helpful: if you're having painful bowel movements, drink a tall glass of water, or a tall glass of water with lemon, and try taking a Ducosate sodium tablet, stool softener, 100 milligram. There is no stimulant in this, so it won't cause cramping or pain. It just softens the stool and it helps you go. This is what is safe to take when you are recovering after you have a baby as well. It's also safe if you have heart conditions, whereas the ones that have the stimulants are not as safe. This is much safer. So anyway, this is just a really gentle thing to help you out. A lot of women with endometriosis have pain when they have bowel movements and have painful bowel movements during their periods, and it's just a godsend. It really is. Something else I would like to recommend for overall health . This is called Naturally Fresh Deodorant Crystal Roll-On Deodorant Liquid, Hypoallergenic, Paraben-Free, PG-Free, Fragrance-Free. It looks like this. It rolls on. It's a clear liquid. The ingredients, it's made in the USA. You can find it at natfreshdeo.com. It looks like it comes from Florida. It has purified water, natural mineral salts, zinc, retinolate, xanthan gum, chamomile extract, and phenoxyethanol. Anyway, this is a deodorant. It is not an antiperspirant, okay? And this just smells amazing. It's Old Spice Fiji deodorant. There is no antiperspirant in this. It smells like really tropical and fresh. These are the only kinds of deodorants that I use. I started using this probably about 8 or 9 years ago. I have never used an antiperspirant since then. Well, I did actually try an antiperspirant for about a month, and then I had some weird side effects, so I stopped using it, to be completely honest. But anyway, so for about 8 or 9 years, I only use deodorants. I don't use antiperspirants. And this is common in some other countries outside of the US. Your armpits are supposed to be an area where your body gets rid of waste. And in some of the other videos I made, I talked about our body being able to get rid of different kinds of waste. You sweat here, you get rid of waste here. And what I have noticed over the years is that when I use a deodorant and I do not use an antiperspirant, when I do sweat, and when I'm eating healthier, and when I'm drinking water more and juice more, I don't really have any odor. If I do start to notice a little bit of odor, I just get like a wet wipe or a towel and I just wipe it off, and I put a little bit more of this or this on. I noticed that I just feel better overall when I use this compared to when I used to use antiperspirants. And I'm just really against a product like an antiperspirant that would block your body's ability to perspire, which is to sweat, which is to release toxins, which is something that your body needs to do. So I don't think you should ever inhibit your body's ability to get rid of toxins or to follow its natural processes that it needs to follow. So that's just part of whole health. Supporting your glands, supporting your lymphatic system, supporting your circulatory system, supporting all of your systems so that they can work together in a really healthy sort of way. Something else that I think is vital to share is that when you have hormone imbalances, or when you're prone to hormone imbalance, or when you're prone to heart disease in your family, you might experience high blood pressure, high cholesterol, things of that nature, even at a young age. A lot of people don't realize that the adrenal glands and the kidneys can be connected to this process. I personally started taking a beta blocker, a very low dose beta blocker called Bistolic, I think it was in the beginning of 2011, maybe 2010. I think it was 2011. Yeah. And I also started taking a medication called clonazepam in very low doses, which is the generic form of Klonopin. And clonazepam is supposed to work on your nervous system to help it to be calm, your entire nervous system. So it helps your body to manage pain, it helps your body to manage emotion, it helps your body to relax properly, to sleep more soundly. It's been a miracle medication for me. I experienced a lot of traumatic events in my life, and that medication just literally saved my life. And the pain and suffering of endometriosis is very difficult to manage on both a physical level and on an emotional and spiritual level. And the clonazepam helps me to feel calm and relaxed and to manage my pain. It's something that's being used more and more often in men who come back from war and who experience chronic pain or chronic traumatic stress syndrome. It's just been a really, really great medication for them. Beta blockers, like the beta blocker that I take, helps with migraines, helps with high blood pressure, helps with blood pressure spikes. It can help with what's the other thing? Anyway, those are the main things that it really, really helps with. If you have really bad migraines, it helps with all that stuff. And I used to get debilitating migraines, and because they've combined the beta blocker with the clonazepam, I don't have blood pressure spikes hardly ever anymore. They don't send me to the ER. My migraines don't send me to the ER. And my anxiety is much more controlled. And I've stayed on a very low dose for all of these years, and it's been a huge blessing, and I'm very thankful for the doctors that did help to diagnose those conditions in me and help me with those conditions. Something else that I forgot to mention is when I mentioned the study of viruses being connected to endometriosis and other reproductive disorders, the Epstein-Barr virus I mentioned, I forgot to tell you that I personally had really chronic, horrible tonsillitis. It was recommended that I get my tonsils taken out as a teenager, but it never got done. And then I had them taken out in, I think, 2008. I think it was maybe in 2008. And I was in my early 20s, and that surgery was very difficult to recover from, but my health dramatically improved after that. But I thought that's very interesting that the virus that causes Epstein-Barr, which is mononucleosis, is also connected to problems with tonsils and other things. It's very interesting that there's people starting to study that virus in connection with those things, and I personally had problems with that part of my body. I was never officially diagnosed with mono, but I had the issues with my tonsils. And let's see, what were some other things? Something else I forgot to mention when I was talking about unique viruses and how I think we should examine, more genetic components and more viral components regarding the way this condition operates. There's a really interesting virus that was recently in the news, and I think it was deemed the Texas star tick or something like that. It's a virus that you can contract from a tick, or a condition you contract from a tick. And what's happened is when people are bit by the tick that has this particular protein in it, once that gets into your bloodstream, it has the effect of causing you to become allergic to many types of meat. I have a child that has a life-threatening food allergy to peanuts. I watched her nearly die in my arms when she was about 2.5, 3 years old, in an emergency room after a babysitter allowed her to eat some Reese's Pieces, or to taste some, I should say. So I know how scary life-threatening food allergies are. It's really bizarre, but also very scientifically interesting and valuable for us to have made a discovery that a bite from a tick can cause a person to be incapable of digesting meats. It helps to demonstrate that there is so much intricate knowledge that is yet to be had by the scientific community regarding our biology and our systemic processes, and that we need to be really open-minded and creative and look at these things like the retrograde menstruation that seem really obvious, and they've been right in front of our faces for years, but we just never talked about them. We need to look at those things, but we also need to consider things on a microscopic level and be open-minded to the fact that new ideas and new things may present themselves as well as factors in these issues. And we can't just keep doing the same things we've always done in the past. We have to start doing new things. We have to change what we do. When I did gymnastics, there's a lot of things I regret about gymnastics, mostly the beatings that my body took during gymnastics. And I don't mean people hitting me, I mean crashing into, the ground and crashing into equipment during, grueling training for years and years and years. There were things about the sport that were beautiful, just like football, just like any sport, but there were things about it that I think were very detrimental to me as a whole. But I had a coach who was a really brilliant man, and there were some times that I could almost say I hated him, but there were sometimes he instilled some great wisdom in me. And one of the things that he used to say during training and practice that I love when you apply it to science, and I love when you apply it to the way we live our lives. He would say, if you do the same things all the time, the same things are always going to happen. And basically what he meant was, you have to change. You have to change the way you do things. You have to try and make it better. You have to always be striving to learn new things and to do what you do better than you did before. And or to do it differently, or you're not going to learn anything new. And so even though I would be practicing the same trick, the same, routine, thousands and thousands of times before competition, what he was trying to get across was that, you have to take new approaches and new perspectives and new angles so that you can do that same thing better. Or maybe you need to change it and do it completely differently. But that was what he was trying to drive home, and that's what I think we have to do as women, in women's health, in women's awareness, in women's advocacy, in the way we live, in the way we eat, in the way we learn about our anatomy and physiology, and in the way we make decisions about things like what we should do, and that is to stop using tampons because of retrograde menstruation. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really wish I would have shared. When you make a really large group of very personal videos, you might as well share every piece of helpful thing you think you can share with another person, and that's really my goal. So I think I mentioned some superfoods in there before, like raspberries, yogurt, sunflower seeds, sun butter, which is made from sunflower seeds. Let's see, eggs and fish, fruits and vegetables. Raspberries are really interesting, guys. Read about raspberries. Cinnamon is really great for your blood sugar levels. Just making sure that your food is as healthy and clean and chemical free and as possible. Learn to grow your own food and learn about pollution and learn about soil composition. Learn about your environment. We've gotten so far separated from these things that are just are supposed to be intricately part of our survival. And in a way, technology blesses us, but we have to also use technology to help us stay connected to the earth and our bodies and how things work. People don't often know how to start a fire without a lighter. People often don't know how to get seeds from a raspberry and grow their own raspberries. People don't know how to grow potatoes. People don't know how to, or they don't even think sometimes about the fact that they could gather their own water from the sky. Just catch it in buckets and use it to water your vegetable garden. There's so many natural things that people have done since the beginning of time that are just so very practical and wonderful, and we're starting to lose our knowledge and skills at practicing these tasks. People don't know how to hunt without a gun. You know, there's just so many things that we need to get back in touch with, because it's part of who we are as living people. And I think getting in touch with the earth and with our bodies and with our health helps us to be more mindful about everything in our lives so we can make it better for the future. So I think that's everything that I thought maybe I had left out that I wish I would have mentioned in some way. There's one more thing I want to mention. There was an epidemic many years ago called yellow fever. And back then, science didn't really know what was causing yellow fever. And I think like millions of people actually died from yellow fever. You can go back and read, history, things about it from various sources. And I think what it turned out to be was mosquitoes had either a bacteria or a virus or a germ, and the mosquitoes were getting into like filthy areas where there was not enough sanitation, there was not enough garbage removal, there was dense population areas and lots of filth, and these germs or viruses or bacteria, they were spreading, and they were being spread by the mosquitoes, and it was just killing people left and right. And it was a really horrific disease. It caused a really horrific sort of death. And we didn't have germ theory back then. I think germ theory kind of arose out of that epidemic. But it's really interesting to go back and study things like that throughout scientific and medical history, because it shows us how we can be at a point where we feel like we know so much and discover something so tiny, and it totally changes the whole world. And how important it is for us to keep trying to learn new things. If you've never heard of pellagra, if you've never heard of, gosh, there's just so many things I've read about. Things that can happen due to vitamin and nutrient deficiencies. There were so many times in history, and even in recent history, where places were experiencing droughts or famines, and when people's diets did not become diverse enough, or when people were not able to handle foods in the way that they normally would, people just started dying and getting really sick. And it wasn't always necessarily because they didn't have anything to eat or anything to drink. It was because they didn't have the variety that the body needed, or they weren't able to cook or prepare the food in the way that it needed to be cooked or prepared to make it safe. There was a time when Cameron Diaz talks about this in one of her books. the body book, there was a time period where lots of people were having this strange thing where their skin would get kind of rough and thick, and then they would kind of get really crazy, and then they would die. And they thought they had some kind of disease that was spreading, and then what it turned out to be was a vitamin and nutrient deficiency. And it was mostly happening in very poor communities where they were eating mainly just like 2 or 3 foods, and that was pretty much all they had. And so for years and years this epidemic went on, and it was just a matter of food supply and nutrition. So that was a really interesting thing that she shared in that book. There's another book, I think it's called Wicked Plants. I've read about half of it so far. I've kind of skipped around, but it talks about the Salem witch trials and scientists that have gone back and examined those events. And there's this really interesting theory that talks about how these people were acting really crazy, almost kind of drunk, and then their bodies would be like jerking, kind of in a seizure type manner, and then they would die, and they thought these people were possessed. And something that they went back and examined about that area and that time of history was that the rye bread, I think is what it was prone to contracting a type of fungus that could contaminate the grain and bread supply in batches. And it was theorized that this was actually what was ingested by the people who were thought to be possessed or cursed by witches, and it killed them, because this whole epidemic, or this whole strange set of events, it stopped almost as quickly as it happened. And they also noticed that the crops that year had the exact conditions that would be derivative of producing this type of fungus that would have this effect on people if it was ingested. So it's just, there's just so many things that we need to take time to learn about and understand, so that we're not doing the same things all the time. Because our female population, our little girls, I think it's really concerning and devastating that a little girl could start her period, walk into a supermarket anywhere, or even a pharmacy, which is supposed to be a place of wellness, and buy a box of tampons and start using them, and have no knowledge of the fact of what retrograde menstruation is, or how her anatomy and physiology works. She's never heard of the word endometriosis. She has no idea about what could be happening to her body. So this takes us into a whole other realm of the impact of these conditions and these products on minors. And I think that makes it even more serious, because they don't have a chance. They haven't had a chance. They haven't lived long enough to discover and learn things for themselves. These are really young girls. Some girls get their periods as early as 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12. These are little girls. My daughter is almost 9. I tell her everything that I read and study about, because if I was to die tomorrow, I would want to know that I left her with every bit of wisdom and knowledge that I could. And I teach her, question everything. Question everything and ask yourself, where did this piece of information come from? What was the source for this piece of information, and do I personally agree with it? Or would I want to press the issue more and learn more about it? And just be that for your children, be that for your friends. Talk about this stuff. And I'm going to go try and get ready for the day and get some work done. And if you're looking for work from home jobs, just keep Googling work from home, job opportunities, virtual assistant, work at home, telecommuting. There's a website, or there's a web article on a website called about.com, and there's a lady there that has posted hundreds of companies that have work from home job opportunities. Call and research every work from home job opportunity that you can and just learn about it. Also, take note about what is in lubricants, what is in the plastics and the products that make up sexual toys. Take note of what you put on your body and what comes in contact with your reproductive organs. Society is in this really interesting place right now where we are all about sexual liberation and sexual freedom. And in many ways, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But it has the capacity to be very dangerous, because while we are trying to be more accepting of more diversity as far as sexuality goes, there are not regulatory things in place when it comes to many areas of sex toys and sexual stimulation and sexual related products. And we are starting to be made to feel like different kinds of sex acts are normal and therefore healthy and therefore safe. And there are different risks associated with different types of sexual activities. You know, oral sex, vaginal sex, anal sex, all different types of sexual experimentation. There are different risks associated with these types of sexual activities, and some of them are very, very serious, and you don't need to be like everybody else. You need to be exactly who you want to be, and err on the side of caution. Be cautious, because you have one body and it's going to take you through this whole life, and you have a purpose. Your body holds your spirit. Your body is your home, it is your vessel, it is your blessing, and you need to find people to surround you with that love protecting your health, love protecting your spirit, love protecting your mind, love protecting your physical strength, and just love you. And you need to love you. This is so incredibly important. I spent a lot of years succumbing to the pressure of what I thought other people expected of me, and I regret that for many reasons. And I'm going to touch on this subject too, because I have to, and I have every right to. Endometriosis is one of those things that affects millions and millions of women, but that women don't often talk about because it's painful to talk about. It's not sexy to talk about. Sometimes it's really sad to talk about. It's taken me a long time to get to the point that I'm at right now. Sexual abuse, rape, verbal abuse, physical abuse against women, children, and any person, even a man. These things affect so many people, so very many people, and they have affected me. And there have been times in my life when I felt so much pain, both spiritually and physically, that I thought, I'm not sure how to find the will, the strength, the desire to keep living. I felt like I felt a lot of hopelessness. And you have to seek out inspiration, seek out love, seek out healing, and be very patient with yourself. and know that you are not alone, and pray, and just never give up, because I said this in one of my other videos, the capacity for healing and miracles, whether it's 100% from God or it's working together with God and science and things that you do yourself, the capacity for these wonderful positive things in your life is greater than the capacity for all pain, all suffering, and all sorrow. Always remember that, and just never, never give up. God bless you, and God bless our women.